Hey, thanks for joining. You did it. Nice job. Introducing our project management trainer, speaker, author, and coach to thousands of professionals and organizations worldwide, including NASA, the U.S. Air Force, USACE, U.S. Army, the Department of Transportation, the FBI. Your friend, Phil. Over to you, Phil.
Hello, my fellow project managers. Welcome to Project Management 101. This is where we take a look at project management, bare bones, talk about what it is, and give people who want to know more about project management an idea of what exactly it is. So we started this journey about 4 episodes ago or so, and we talked about how project management is the application of knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques. Knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques to get your project done, to get that deliverable out of the door into the hands of the customer, or to get that service rendered or delivered. That is exactly what project management is. What is a project? It's a temporary endeavor. It is a temporary endeavor with a start and an end. And the main purpose of the project is to deliver a product, a service, or a result. And within the past few episodes, I've shown you how project management is broken into 5 process groups. In other words, 5 sets of things. You could look at them as 5 big buckets of things that need to be done by the project manager. The first set is initiating. You need to initiate every project. The second set is planning. You need to plan out the project. Now, initiating and planning are often confused by beginners. Initiation is authorization of the project, the stamp of approval to say, yes, this project is good to go. It is good to be started. It is authorized. We identify the project manager. We identify someone called the sponsor who acts as a champion for the project. So that stamp of approval is really what initiating the project is. You may hear people say initiation or initiating, same thing. They're talking about the genesis of the project. Once the stamp of approval has happened, the project manager has been identified. The next step, still within initiating, is to begin to identify stakeholders, people who the project could affect, people who could be affected by the project. And actually, the project, when it is initiated, is documented in a project charter. So the project charter is a high-level description of the project. It gives you some ideas about what the scope is at a high level, what the schedule milestones are at a high level. It also contains a stakeholder list. So a list of initial stakeholders could also be in your project charter. Okay? Now, when you're done and dusted with initiating, you begin to plan out the project, and that's where we've spent majority of our time looking at various tools and techniques and things that could be used for planning. I've shown you everything from Trello in the world of Agile to Microsoft Project to all sorts of tools. Today I am going to be building on that, and I can see I am in high demand once again. My phone is always ringing off the hook. But anyway, going further, I'm going to show you today a tool that is out there. We've talked about all sorts of tools, but I want to show you a tool that is not very common. A lot of folks may not know about this, but it is for developing a work breakdown structure. It is called WBS Tool. It is quite an interesting tool, and it is online. Right there, as you can see in the address, there's an example of what this software is actually meant to do for you. It's meant to help you develop a work breakdown structure, which is one of the things we've talked about. So if you haven't watched the previous episodes where I talk about the WBS and the requirements traceability matrix, requirements documentation, you might want to take a look at that. So if I click on use without login, my browser does not support Flash. So this is what you do when your browser does not support Flash. I think I have to tweak something in my settings here. Let me see if I'll have any fun with this. Google Chrome. Oh dear. What have we here? Flash. Okay, let's choose allow. This is the drama that the Google boys have presented to us. Everyone is Flash averse these days because some people think Flash is the devil. It presents inroads for hacking. That's what I hear a lot. But anyway, let's do this again. There we go. All right. So with Flash installed, I'm glad that drama ensued because now you know what to do about it. But going in here, you can see an example of a WBS. But the cool thing is you can overwrite this, or you can just start off a new WBS. Let's click on new. Yes, let's go. Okay, so here's your first element. Let's call this cake baking project. It's a cake baking project, and that's our first node. We call this the root node. Now we're going to build on this by clicking on one of these to add a child. Okay, we're going to add a child, and we're going to call this ingredient. And then we're going to add a sibling to it. That's the button for the sibling. We're going to call this bake. And we're going to add another sibling to bake. And we're going to call this one serve. And clean up. All right. Now, for those of you that have not really played with the WBS before, the purpose of the work breakdown structure is to get an idea of all the things that need to be done on the project in a deliverable oriented fashion. The main purpose is to get a visualization broken down into big buckets of deliverables, or phases if you like, to understand what the project entails. It is such a phenomenal tool that I cannot overstate how important it is for teams to work together, especially on new projects, new technology projects, where you've got no clue about what you're going to do. You know you've got the brain power, but you really haven't set out your direction, a vision of where you're going. You want to use a WBS. Okay, I'm going to read a little bit for you from the PMBOK guide just to get you a little bit more up to speed with this WBS. It says on page 156 of the book I call your favorite book, the PMBOK guide, it says, create WBS is the process of subdividing project deliverables and project work into smaller, more manageable components. So that is what we're doing here. We're breaking it down into smaller, more manageable components. It says the key benefit of this process is that it provides a framework of what has to be delivered. This process is performed once or at predefined points in the project. It goes on, and it says a WBS is a hierarchical decomposition of the total scope of work. So look at that. It's a hierarchical decomposition. You see, from the top down to lower levels. It says the WBS organizes and defines the total scope of the project and represents the work specified in the current approved project scope statement. The planned work is contained within the lowest level of WBS components, which are called work packages. So as we build the WBS, you see us going to lower levels, we get to the lowest level. We could call that a work package. It says in the context of the WBS, work refers to work products or deliverables that are the result of activity and not to the activity itself. So the purpose of the WBS is not to create a schedule. A schedule will go down into much lower levels of, like hours, 1 hour, 2 hours, 5 hours, things like that. But in the typical WBS, which is for a substantial amount of time, let's say it's a 1-year WBS, I would not expect to see 8-hour tasks put into such a WBS. What I would expect to find is things at a much higher level of like 40 hours and things like that, but definitely not going down to a level that is so granular that it becomes cumbersome for you to put together or for you to manage. Now, depending, I know projects are different. Some projects you may have granular details of tiny little hours here and there, but in most WBSs, I'll just say roughly, you would expect to see a week of work to maybe 8 weeks of work, you know, in a 1 to 2 year WBS. I wouldn't expect to find things going down to hours. That would be excessive. That is what you actually would need in your project schedule. Definitely not in your WBS. Now, you know, this is just one of the tools for creating a work breakdown structure. There are many other tools that exist, and I will endeavor to show you an example of that if I'm able. But for now, let's just go back to our free WBS tool. It's a free tool, and that's what I like about it. It's good for beginners to go in and play around with. So under ingredients, we could include things such as by ingredients. We could actually have research. You want to do your little research first. Then you could have by ingredients. Then you could have mix ingredients. Okay? And there are different ways you could organize this stuff. If you click on the organize button there, you can see you can make them tree structured, going down like that. First select it and select the structure you want, like that, or like this. You see, just to keep them out of the way. For bake, we could have, let's put in some children here. We could have prep oven. I obviously don't know much about baking. Set the temperature. I used to be good at eating, but I'm kind of putting cake off limits to the degree that I used to. I'm trying to do a little bit of weight maintenance here. So set temperature and put in oven. And you know, in this example, it's going down to like levels that may seem a little bit low. It's really just for illustration purposes. Okay, serve the cake. So we could say table prep. Set stand and accessories. And then cut the cake. Let's put this in the same format, just keeping them away from each other. And of course, my students, they typically say, Phil, you forgot the eat the eat component. All right, let's put eat in there. So eat. Bear in mind that I'm having fun with this stuff. All right, so don't overanalyze it. The bottom line is, take this, use it to do whatever you will. Okay, but do remember that on your projects, you don't want to go too far down. You don't want to go too granular as you do this stuff. Be at a level that makes sense for the purpose you're working on. All right, so the cleanup task here, the cleanup, I should say, component, note that correction. You don't want to call these tasks. These are meant to be much, much higher level buckets of work. They're not tasks. People a lot of times incorrectly call these, as you saw me make that mistake. You don't want to call them tasks. They're not tasks. They are higher level components of work. Even the lower level ones, I know in this little example of mine, they look like tasks, but in reality, they should be higher buckets of work aggregates and deliverable oriented components of your work. Okay, so under cleanup, clear the table. Let's add a sibling to that. Wash or wash up. It's a lot more than plates to wash. And put away utensils. So this is a very, very, very rough example. The purpose is to demonstrate the functionality of this great tool, WBSTool.com. Okay, you can save what you have done with a Control S. You can save the XML for what you've done, thereby coming back to it. I think these guys have done a brilliant job. It's unfortunate that very soon these aspects may be going away in this form, because a lot of companies are moving away from Flash, because Flash has a lot of loopholes that people can do bad things with. Let's just put it that way. So this tool is not, unfortunately, is not going to be around forever and ever and ever. I would put it at maybe a year or two more before Google and other browsers begin to shut down the use of Flash. In fact, a lot of people are these days just going to HTML5 to avoid, the drama. But anyway, that is pretty much what I wanted to show you in this tool. It has many bells and whistles. I've used this in training. I've used this to give my students an idea of what exactly a WBS is. And you can choose your text style here. You can, toggle between different styles. You can choose different colors, for whatever, for your text. So, depending on what you want to do. Let's make a few changes here. Make it bold. So if I wanted to make the root node a little bit different from everything else, I can do that. I could give it a fill if I wanted. Let's give it a different color to make it stand out. You can see the root node looks a little bit different from the other. It's just an all-around great tool to play with. Okay, I would recommend for everyone who has a project they're working on, play with your WBS tool. Okay, go in there, use it to knock out ideas. I know there are many other tools. For those of you who have other tools to do it, that's great. But for those of you who are just starting off, I thought this would be a great way for you to play around and at the same time get comfortable with putting together a work breakdown structure. All right. And that concludes our review of project management basics. You'll realize I'm putting different layers of understanding on top of our previous versions, because I have been getting questions that have pointed me to the fact that people just need to practice more, play around with this stuff more, feel it more, have fun with it more, and it becomes every day. It becomes like no big deal. Yeah, WBS, I can put one together. I know what exactly it is, and I know how to put one together. Before I go though, I want to call your attention to the PMI's website, where they have a standard for WBS creation. If you have not visited PMI's website, let me point this out to you right now. All right, go to PMI.org and scroll to where you have the practice standard for work breakdown structures right there. Click on that and you'll be able to download, if you are a member of the PMI, you'll be able to download some pretty solid instructions about how to put a work breakdown structure together. And when I say solid instructions, it's a practice guide. So it's a rather significant body of work here that the PMI has put together. It says, work breakdown structures are a key component in the project planning process. Regardless of industry or discipline, the WBS organizes the project's total scope while reflecting the work specified, helping practitioners standardize how they track projects and overcome large uncertainties when they arise. As a comprehensive update to the practice standard for WBS structures 2nd edition, the 3rd edition applies WBS to, let's make it big so you can see it, Agile. Boom. The word a lot of firms are still running away from. Okay, so you see examples from the world of Agile, iterative, predictive, and incremental project life cycles, while also exploring several different types of decomposition in practice today. This is a standard that for you guys who may be PMPs already, I highly, highly, highly recommend. There are actually parts of this standard, practice standard for WBS creation, that take you into a lot more robust discussion about what the WBS is. It is a very, very wholesome presentation of what the WBS is and what it constitutes and what it's all about. So I highly recommend it. For those of you who are already PMPs, I want to really encourage you to get this document. Now, unfortunately, I cannot share my copy with you. Why should I say fortunately I cannot? Because it has PMI's IP. But I want to read a few things for you. Just a few things. Just a few. All right. So, why is a WBS required? The WBS is a practical tool assisting the project planning team in overcoming large uncertainties. I cannot speak enough about this. I remember a well-known scientific firm, name withheld, they were pulling their hair out, wondering, how are we going to put this project together? What are we going to do? We want this new state-of-the-art scientific system, and that's the most I'll say about that. But they called my buddy Colin and I, Colin is my Microsoft project guru, who does as much as even write the questions. I mean, he writes the questions for Microsoft project exam. I mean, he's that good. So talking about this endeavor, we went out there and helped them put some framework around this project that they wanted to do by giving them support in WBS creation and scheduling help. And we used a tool called WBS Chart Pro to put together the WBS. Anyway, long story short, by the time we were done, these scientists, their heads were smoking. Not in a bad way. Not because we bombarded them with project management information, but because all of these ideas that they had about this system and how it should look and behave and be put together, all their massive monumental ideas began coming together in a gargantuan WBS. This WBS was huge. It filled the wall. But by the time we were done in 2 days, by whittling down ideas, bringing together what they were thinking in their heads, putting it into a WBS, my goodness. Now, this is about 3 years later. That project was a home run because of the WBS. So what the PMI is saying here about, it being a practical tool assisting the project planning team in overcoming large uncertainties and aiding in converting an uncertain challenge into a series of challenges with lesser uncertainties, that absolutely held true when we went out there to consult with this firm. So we put together WBS, we help them craft the beginnings of the schedule, and that is what put them on the trajectory to success. It says, in simple terms, the WBS helps in converting the entire project scope, not carried out before as a whole, into a series of smaller components called work packages. These work packages may have been dealt with in the past, which makes them more easily assessed, measured, managed, and communicated. So that is really why you're working on this WBS. It's not just a pastime. It's not just for teams to have a feel-good factor. No, it is for real results. You see, it says, when is a WBS created? When is a WBS updated? Updates to the WBS arise through the formal perform integrated change control process as additional scope information surfaces, coupled with information revealed from project planning or in adaptive life cycles, iteration, or release planning. It says WBS provides the framework and serves as the basis for various other planning processes. So the bottom line is this: you get a change request for more scope, for less scope, your WBS should reflect that. It says monitoring and control of the WBS happens throughout the project lifecycle as part of the control scope process in the project scope management knowledge areas. Modifications and updates to the WBS occur throughout the project lifecycle as derived from the project's change control process. Outputs from the change control process often yield approved change requests to the project scope. Okay. Next question is, what types of projects have a WBS? Watch this. Creating a WBS is an essential part of the planning process of every type of project. So some folks that say, oh, I don't need a WBS. Yes, you do. And you should create one, right? It says whether externally facing or internally focused, a WBS is crucial regardless of the industry or the discipline in which projects take place. Applying a WBS is critical irrespective of the type of project deliverables or the type of project lifecycle. The practice standard elaborates on the implementation of the WBS structures in predictive, iterative, incremental, and agile. Go get this. Go get it. You are going to benefit from it, even if all you're going to do is kind of scrimp around the edges. I would highly recommend this document, my friends. Those of you who especially have PMI certifications, you need to be digging down into the details of this and unraveling, what is new in the world of WBS creation. And with that, my friend, we've come to the end of our PMBOK Gold and Project Management 101. If you have not hit like, please do. If you have not shared it with a few friends in the project management space, those PM geeks, do that, please. And subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in our next episode. Bye for now.